Welcome to the very first episode of Game Changers, Voices of the Games Industry, the podcast where we shine the spotlight on the makers and movers of the games industry, especially those who have recently been affected by layoffs or go through a career transition of sorts. So in order to kick this off, I think there's no better person to do this than Toby, who I worked with for quite a long time. So to kick things off, Toby, can you maybe introduce yourselves briefly and tell us a bit about your recent projects that you have been part of?
Yes, sure, Lars. Thank you for having me. And yes, they are troublesome times these days. But yeah, my name is Tobias Severin. I'm studio development director at Fishlabs. Um, I'm in the industry for over 25 years, quite some time. Um, in the last 10 years, I was involved in quite a few different kind of projects. Um, I joined Fishlabs for making Dead Island Survivors, a mobile game based on the Dead Island IP. Most recently, late 2021, I was a part of the Chorus team. So we shipped Chorus, a space combat shooter for PC and consoles. But also the team at Fishlabs was helping other studios to bring their games to other platforms. For example, Valheim. We brought Valheim to the Xbox console. Then we had Goat Simulator 3 for PlayStation 5 and Xbox. So yeah, quite some different kind of IPs, different kinds of genres, project of different kind of sizes. And as studio development director, it's very close to being an executive producer, so a strong foot on project management, producing, working with other directors. So yeah, that's what I'm currently doing. I
Yeah, I
have
think
done.
knowing you've always been involved in pretty much all the aspects of game development. I guess that's who you are. So it comes with a role, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want to make these episodes also somewhat fun, even though it's not an easy time for many. We want to look at things in a bit of a unique way. So I prepared a couple questions that I wanted to lead you through, and I'm curious about your answers. So the first one would be if you could have a 1 hour conversation with any character from a video game of your choice, or a video game that you've worked on or admired. Who would that character be, and what would you ask the character?
Wow, that's a tough one. To be honest, like I'm not that obsessed with video game characters. Um, I'm more the systemic emergent gameplay guy. So finding a character that like would have a conversation with, maybe Snake from Metal
Okay,
Gear
that's a
Solid.
good one. Yeah.
Um, why? I think it was like PlayStation 1, and that was like the first Metal Gear Solid. And I still
Yeah.
remember that playing it. I had a a shared flat with Thorsten Feldmann. You might know him,
Oh yeah,
right?
I know Torsten as well.
And we played that game like really like all night long and stuff like that. And I'm not sure, was it because I was so young? Maybe it was due to my limited knowledge of the English language. I don't think that I got the story right. And if I would meet Snake, I would ask like, what is all the story is about? Will it ever make sense in one of the installments of the franchise? So because
What the hell did you do in your games? Explain.
so because like I think like we nearly finished the game, but I was a little bit like with a question mark above my head. It's like, okay, I'm a little bit confused. And I think like when I'm following the franchise, there's like even between the installments so many, you know, un unsolved mysteries that maybe I ask Snake or Kojima, or uh, most likely it's his thing, right, to make it a little bit
Yeah.
confusing and not resolving the mysteries. But yeah, that maybe that would be an interesting conversation. I'm pretty
Yeah, I
sure.
think trying to get something out of Kojima that is clear is probably a challenge in itself.
That would be the end boss for sure.
Absolutely.
The end fight.
No,
Getting
that's
something out of him, yeah.
definitely a good one. So, from video game character to your own personal career. I mean, of course, you're also a character in the game of making games. So, I was wondering if you could share like one of those eureka moments in your career, that kind of those pivotal crucible moments, always almost that kind of reshaped your way that you approach your work in the games industry. Is there any such thing?
I think what I like doing games is that there are so many moments that change the way you think, like this is the way it goes, and then 5 years later it's completely different, right? I think like there are a couple of or a lot of moments where it's like, oh, I need to recalibrate, I need to rethink. Um, but maybe one thing that had the most influence on my way of developing games, oh, when was it? Maybe 15 years ago or something. And maybe I need to explain like where I was coming from, like early days of
Sure.
game development. Like my first company was called Forehead, and we started creating a very complex, typical German trading simulation. A lot of complex systems that need to work together. Beside that, we need to develop our own 3D technology, 2D technology, audio technology, and actually it took ages that it make fun. It's like 1.5 year, and we haven't played the game once, right? So, and that was how I grew up, so to speak, in the games industry. So it was always very slow. Someone started to write documents like like 200 pages of a game design document, and it took like 2 or 3 years to actually prove out these kind of ideas.
Mhm.
And then I started my second studio called Ticking Bomb, and that was in the free-to-play browser game, online game as a service area. Um, and at that time, there was a company, a, a Danish company called Unity, and they had like an engine that was on Mac only. The Windows client really sucked. It was super unstable. So we had to experiment on a Mac to create
Imagine that, Mac only and
Mac.
games.
Oh,
You know, it
exactly,
speaks right to
exactly.
my heart for this. For those of you who know
I
me.
mean, that's not bad, right? But it was like it was not very matured. But the idea of giving away 3D technology for a cheap price, like it was back in the days, it was like per seat or something. But we were basically able, with like a team of 5 people or something, doing a prototype within like 3 months. It was a squad-based multiplayer game, 3D, running in a browser. It's like, wow. And I think that changed my way how I approached game development, testing out ideas as fast as possible. If it does not work, throw it away. And this is like completely different to what I experienced a decade before. And I mean, we take it as granted nowadays, right? Everybody, if you watch it, it's like rapid prototyping, time to market, but it was not that, right? Back
Right.
then, and that was for me a completely a game changer in game development. And back in the days, it was also like where like Scrum started, agile development started to be a thing, and then all of a sudden it makes sense. It's iterate fast together with technology, and that since then I never created games the old way. Nobody's doing that anymore, right? But it was really it changed my mind. I approached game development for sure.
At least everybody nowadays is talking about rapid prototyping and and those cycles. I sometimes wonder if they actually do it, because I still sense this emotional attachment to the projects you've worked on. So sometimes, once you get to a point where you start believing in it, then letting it go, is difficult, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's always room for rapid prototyping, and I think like if you have like a longer development cycle of like 3 years or something, of course you start very agile, you know, going up and down and right and left, but then heading more towards like the full production. Of course, it's getting more rigid. Um, but that's the way how it is, and how prototyping is it has its place in a development cycle. You're right, but it's sometimes very hard to kill your darlings. But
Absolutely,
this
it's
is
a
more
great
like a
exercise that I love to do with
absolutely.
some
But
teams.
this
Kill your darlings to get people trained to that.
yeah,
Because in the end,
but this is less
it,
a thing
it
on
gets to a better result.
this is more like a mindset, right? It's less like a technology thing or like
True.
a how you arrange your sprints or something. This is like how you teach people how they see things and the willingness of let things go if they don't work right.
Yeah, and especially in games, I think it happens a lot that sometimes you have a hard time letting things go. It's a typical thing. I mean, we've seen it together, and you've probably seen it before, and I've seen before. Is like we invested so much into it already. I mean, now we can't stop doing this, And sometimes that's the worst decision you can make, especially because of the price you pay not being
Absolutely,
able to work on something new.
absolutely.
So I mean, since we talk about making games now, so I was wondering, is there any game that you would love to have worked on in the past? So if you go back in time and have the chance to, look at a game from the past, which one would it be that you said,
Oh,
like,
that's a
I would have loved to work on this, and why?
that's a good question. I mean, there are so many good games out there. Um, and most likely I need to go back, like really back in time.
Don't tell
Um,
anybody how old you are.
yeah,
So.
so RTS and shooter are my favorite genres, so most likely I need to pick one of these. And then what are the most? It was like so either it's Age of Empires
Oh yeah.
or, and this is like maybe an outlier.
Now I'm
It's
curious.
Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. Do you know
Oh
that
wow,
game?
yeah, I know it. I haven't really played it much, but I
But
know.
it's and most likely I would pick Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. Because it was back in the days when we created Gilde, and we used to play like in the evening, like
Mm.
this typical LAN online thing. And it was a lot of the times we played Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. And what I found interesting in there is they really came up with a unique blend of good, solid gun gameplay, shooter mechanics, and blended with tactical options and like class design. And I think like this is something that I haven't seen in modern franchises. And it's still very they're still king. I would be part of that. It was Splash Damage. They came from community modding and they were a pretty small team. So what they have achieved with a small team being a kind of a genre defining game which is still played today. I actually stumbled over on LinkedIn. It's like 20 years later, they still play it. I it's like a genre-defining thing of a game that I like and love, a genre that I love, with a small good team. Yeah, I think that would be something that still is missing on my bucket list, I would say.
Have you
So
played it
yeah.
lately?
Um,
I was
no,
just wondering if it aged well, like 20 years. I mean, some
most
games
likely
after 20
not.
years
I'm
they
still
look still
glorifying,
amazing, but
I'm pretty sure I'm still glorifying the graphics and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, but it was I missed it, and how defining that was. Like also like the mechanics was like moving front lines. Battlefield adopted that with Bad
right.
Company, so that's really really good. And um, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't age very well in terms of graphics and stuff.
You also mentioned Age of Empires before. Is there anything in particular that you remember fondly of Age of Empires that would be your why of wanting to work on that game?
I think it was for me very impressive that I could sink so many hours into it, and it
Oh
was
yeah, me
always
too, by
fresh.
the way.
It's like also in multiplayer, but also like in single player. And the remake was recently released, right, a year ago or something. I played the whole campaign again, and I was not bored, right? So I think like that emergent gameplay, nice historical facts, and yeah, it was again King of the Hill, genre defining, best in class for decades. So
Yeah,
but
certainly
what
two
exactly
great
was
games
cool
that you
about
mentioned.
that? I don't know. It's like everything was cool about that. I even had the honor to to work with a former programmer from them. He was a technical director for like 2 years or something at Fishlabs. And I was like, oh, so
Yeah, for me, I had a similar moment, when I played the first Ultima games, when I pretty much started my, I don't want to say gaming career, but my gaming life. I think Ultima 4 or 5 came out when I, started playing games more. And so I always wanted to meet Lord British, and I had the chance to do so and work with him
that's
a
good.
couple of years ago. So for me, I mean, Richard's now a friend, and it was nice to have that connection. Those are the cool memories. Then hiring
Yeah,
somebody from
absolutely.
a team that made a game that you found inspirational, I
Yeah,
guess, is
yeah,
something
yeah.
special. So I'm wondering if we move on a little bit from that and look into challenges that we have in the industry right now, or that we have in game development in general. So I was wondering, what is one challenge or a set of challenges in the industry or in making games that you are particularly passionate about, and how would you go about solving those?
Oh, there are a lot of challenges these days, right?
I know you gotta pick your
Yeah,
poison,
yeah.
I guess.
It's something that it's a challenge that I'm always thinking of, but I don't have I will not solve it, and I don't have a solution yet. But it's something that um, it's like over and over again. I'm really concerned about the amount of games and how you can actually continue making money out of developing games. That sounds a little bit awkward, but I think like over the last 15 years or 20 years, it has become easier and easier to develop games, but it has become harder and harder to sell games and make money out of it. At least that's how I see it. And the example, what I said, like, hey, this is a game changer, and I absolutely love it, like with Unity democratizing the game development process, so to speak, has two sides of the same sword, I would say. And over the last couple of years, decade, I found it, for me as a game developer, as a game professional, harder and harder to actually be successful in a very crowded market. So
Yeah,
discoverability, reaching the customer, I think it's a huge problem. And we are now not only competing against other studios, we are competing against indies, we are competing against one development armies, we are competing against people doing games on Roblox, doing games on Fortnite. And I don't know where this is heading, but I start getting concerned. And how many games are released on Steam each year? Okay, 4,000, 6,000? Do you have a number?
I don't have a number. I know
It's
it from the
crazy,
mobile
right?
space. I remember, like, because I found that number impressive. I think, and it was in 2018 or so. So already a couple of years ago, there was 750 games released a day.
It's
And
crazy,
that
right?
was, I mean, of course, not all of those games with a super
Yeah,
high production value, but just the sheer amount of games, and everything is listed on the stores. And the same goes for Steam. Obviously, it's not the same number of
yeah,
games
yeah,
being released there, but I fully agree with you. Discoverability is a major
yeah.
issue.
And it's also not only for the developer, but also for the customers, right? And there's also like a danger of like losing the trust of customers, because what we currently have seen with the one game, I don't remember the name. They promised like an open world zombie game, like everything, right? Collected 200,000 pre-sales and then completely tanked because they could not deliver on the promise, right? And if this trend continues and you have like not only one game that uh, uh, um, does not deliver, the people will get like will get, it's not great for the customer, and there will be a mistrust in the platform, so to speak. And I don't know where this is going, but this is something where I start getting a little bit concerned, um, how to solve that as a studio, because obviously I think like creating a great game is not enough anymore, right? There are answers to that, right? Early access, community-driven development, um, but also like the next trend is coming, right? AI. People can even start creating the content by themselves. And
True.
it's like, oh my fucking God. I don't know where this is going, and there's nobody. It's like I don't think I don't. I'm not saying that regulation is the key, yeah, but at least I think what we have seen on the consoles, where Sony and Microsoft, they are doing a decent job in having like regulations, not letting everything through, right? And I think like there might be a way how to, and also if they are banning like clearly AI created content, stuff like that. So yeah, I would not say all my faith is in the destiny is in platform holders with regulations, but yeah, I something needs to happen there, and of course we can also hope that the market regulates itself, right? But it's definitely a challenge that also the customer don't see games as something that you're paying for. And these are different kind of trends with subscription, 99 cent mobile games. Free to play is different kind of a beast, but all of these kind of things, and that's combined with like a flood of games of different kind of criteria, like or different kind of quality. I think like it's challenging for the industry.
Yeah, it's certainly a very interesting time and challenging time in our industry right now. A lot of people talking about how long like the current ups and downs, or more like the downs, will continue before we see light at the end of the tunnel. Personally, I keep believing in it. I keep believing in the
Sure.
power of games, and we will get through this. It's just a question of when exactly, and maybe I don't know, a couple hundred episodes down the road of this podcast, we will have in general a more positive outlook to the future. So we'll see. And actually, I didn't prepare a question around AI, but somehow I knew it was going to come up in this conversation. So
Yeah,
thanks for bringing it up.
I'm quite
We're not
interested in
we're not
these
going to
kind of
dive
things.
deeper into it now, but it's definitely going to, I think, be a theme in the next couple of months and years going forward, because there's pretty much no game development project without having this question, at
Yeah,
least, like how
absolutely.
do we want to use AI, and what's it good for, and where does it not help that much, or even damage. So as we kind of wrap this up, I mean, this is in the end, a bit of to get an overview of who you are as a person. So I'm curious, like, what your dream is, what your project, your favorite project to work on would be in the future here in the games industry, and how do you envision making it a reality? So, what's your purpose going forward?
Dreams. I'm close to 50 years old now.
Now you
I'm
said your
still a
age.
dreamer.
I was trying to
Never
protect
stop
you
dreaming,
earlier, but
right? Never stop dreaming.
no,
Yeah,
you can
I
still
think like
dream with 70 or 80 or however old you are.
yeah, absolutely. I think like this is the thing why I'm still passionate about creating games. You're always chasing your dreams somehow, right? So yeah, it's a valid question for sure. Um, so I don't think that I'm like chasing a role or a specific project. I mean, I had a couple of different kind of roles, like programmer, lead programmer, producer, managing director, what's or not. So for me, it's important like whom I'm working with. So this is important, and that I'm very close to the project itself. So I'm a product guy, right? I want to create games. So this is important, and then I think like I would more chasing for like a dream scenario. And I think like a dream scenario would be to collect all the people, bring back together the band of brothers, like the best people I ever met during my career, right? Some of them became friends, right? And then wait for that perfect storm, so to speak, like an opportunity in the market. It might be AI, it might be the next big thing, or like something like a great opportunity, and then have everyone available at the same time, and then find like a small to medium sized dream team, so to speak, with people who know each other to a certain degree, people that I would love to work with, people who are as passionate about video game development than I am, and then basically do something together with a lot of self control, I would say, like maybe self published, something like that. Yeah, bring back together the dream team of developers and then have fun creating a game and then, And then I'm pretty sure that you have good chances that it will be a successful title.
I agree. Having a dream team together and actually having fun while making games is oftentimes underestimated, I feel, because this is ultimately what leads to a great product in the end. So, I couldn't agree more with that. And so, Toby, I wish you nothing but the best for the next adventure that awaits you. I'm
Same
pretty
for you,
sure,
Lars.
knowing you, that, you will rock it, have very high confidence. And I hope you enjoyed this little conversation. I hope all the listeners of the episode enjoyed like a bit of an insight into Toby's soul, if you will. And I want to thank you again for being a part of this. We will have more of those episodes going to come up in the near future. And we try to, shine the spotlight on more people that are currently in a situation where they navigate career transitions. Thanks again, Toby. It was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Take care, everyone.